I thought building something small would be simple, but this pedalboard proved me wrong. My neighbor Dave, who's been building guitars for 40 years, looked at my design and said, "Raise the back row of pedals. Bevel the sides like a Fender body," and then he said it.
It would look sick if you had the fretboard design on there.
That idea changed everything. Here's what happens when a woodworker thinks like a luthier. I never set out to build a fretboard, but once Dave planted that idea, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And when I measured the front of the frame, it was almost identical to a real guitar neck. I had the perfect piece of walnut sitting on a shelf. It was over 100 years old and just wide enough to bookmatch into 2 fretboards.
Hey, Gordon. All right. What's up, Jay? Nice to see you, huh? Good to see you, too. Yeah.
I used luthier tools to cut fret slots, radius the board, press in frets, and set abalone markers by hand. It was tedious, it was tiny, and it was totally worth it. The full fretboard build is over on Patreon if you want to see a deeper dive into the process. I didn't just want the sides to look like a Fender guitar, I wanted them to feel like one. That meant curves that are more than decorative. Guitar makers shape their instruments to fit the body, and I wanted the same sense of intention to carry through here. Like the pedalboard is meant to be touched, moved, and used. To shape the sides, I built a jig that let me route a sweeping 40-inch radius cove at a perfect 20-degree angle. No CNC, just a handheld router and a 3-part jig that pivots across the workpiece. Watching the form emerge pass after pass was one of the most satisfying parts of the build. It's one of my favorite shop-made jigs, and I shared the full setup over on Patreon. That's where I go deeper, and it's the best way you can support my work as a full-time woodworker and content creator. Of all the challenges in this build, the finish was the biggest leap. I wanted the sides to feel like a real guitar, super high gloss. What I didn't realize was how much work that was going to be. Over 20 coats, 2 weeks of curing, and a spray booth rigged in my shed just to make it happen. But the hardest part wasn't technical, it was trusting the process. The finish started with a pour fill, then sealer, color, and coat after coat of clear gloss finish. Aerosol cans from StewMac, warming each one before to get a consistent spray. Between layers, I wet sanded and waited. Over 2 weeks of cure time before I could even think about buffing. Once the lacquer cured, I wet sanded up to 3000 grit and polished it to a mirror finish. And then, after all that, I had to route a hole straight through it to inlay a brass medallion. I definitely practiced on a scrap first, because there was no undo button. Assembling the final pieces was deeply satisfying. Suddenly, the pedalboard was no longer a collection of parts, but a cohesive whole. What started as a simple commission turned into a project shaped by my community and a desire to push my craft. It also wouldn't have been possible without some beautiful materials like the black cherry frame generously provided by Gutch's Lumber. Dave's insight helped me build something I never would have designed alone. There's a lot more behind this project than I could fit in one video, so if you're curious about the full build process, I shared all of it on Patreon in a 9-part video series. And if you're a musician looking for a pedalboard with some soul, there's still one available on my website.